button here, and I've got to take the screen off of the sheriff's face, and if I can remember how to do that.
Leave it on there if you want to.
There we go. And let's see, I've got to add this here. Oh, things have become so complex in the world of video now. And I've got to turn this microphone on right here. I think I need more hands on deck when running the show now. Well, welcome. It's a Friday morning, Sheriff.
It is. Good morning.
How are things?
It's a beautiful Friday morning.
It is. But the temperatures are getting a little too cold for summer enjoyment.
Well, I love this time of year. I like it cool of a morning and warm of the evening, and just got that perfect mixture of both worlds.
It's starting to make Gaitha cranky.
Is it?
Yeah, she's not happy.
Well,
and when Gaitha's not happy, nobody's happy.
Well, I'm sorry, Gaitha, that you're not enjoying the weather. So maybe it'll switch before too long. It'll be fall here before we know it. It'll be good and cool, and leaves falling, and Halloween time, and Thanksgiving, and all those good things.
That's right.
Yeah.
Remember, it wasn't too long ago. It was snowing on Halloween, but
I remember as a kid, lots of times it was cold and snowing on Halloween. Mm-hmm. I remember when I was I don't remember how old I was, probably about 5 or 6. I remember my sister and I were fussing so hard on Halloween night, going out trick-or-treating because Mom was making us wear coats, and nobody could see our costumes because we had coats on. And it was snowing and all kind of things. So, but hey, it is what it is. Sometimes we get warm weather, sometimes we get cold weather.
Has it been a pretty busy week in the world of law enforcement?
It really has. We've had a pretty busy week this week. Nothing, as far as outrageous or earth-shattering, but we've had a lot of incidents that occurred this week, and our detectives have been out working like crazy, recovering stolen property and those type of things, and working drug cases and those type of things going on. So it's just been busy for us.
Well, let's start off the show by talking about a situation. We shared a press release yesterday, and we read it on the radio this morning from Clay County's, and you were working alongside them about a threat against student and school stopped. Now, the press release did not really give a lot of detailed information. What exactly kind of threat was communicated? Can you kind of fill us in a little bit as much as you can?
Yeah, I can give you the basics on it. Basically, what it was high school students involving a student from the Andrews area talking to students in the Hayesville area. And the student from the Andrews area was talking about basically making threats at the upcoming sporting event that was happening in Hayesville. Just made some vague threats about wanting to do some acts there and hurt people and things at that event. Posted some pictures of some firearms and things of that nature, and just making some pretty serious threats about what he was wanting to do and do to those kids at school. Of course, any kind of threat is taken very seriously in today's time, and so there is a law that's out that is it's a law against mass terrorism, basically involving schools. And when you post things or say things that you're threatening to do bodily harm to someone in a mass casualty way, there's a specific law for that. And so they secured warrants for this student that was making these Facebook threats. I believe it was Facebook. It was some type of social media threats, and came to Cherokee County, where we assisted them in doing a search warrant at that person's house. And luckily, what we did find is they were not in possession of any firearms. The pictures that was posted, I think, were downloaded from the internet. They were not in possession of firearms. So that was a good thing that we did find out and come out of this. But of course, any type of threat is going to be taken seriously, and we're going to follow through with it. And we worked hand in hand with Clay County and the district attorney's office and several other agencies, as you saw posted there, to secure search warrants and things to search the residence.
What age range was the suspect in?
High school range. He was 17, I think.
17?
Yeah. So it's just bad decisions, bad choices.
It kind of makes me wonder what goes through the minds of today's youth.
Right.
And
that's the thing about it, with all the publicity that was been put out about everything and all the problems that we've had in the world and, mass shootings and things of that nature, it's not even something to joke about. It's not even something to make statements about or joke, even in joking manner, because there's nothing funny about it. There's nothing joking about it. And so anything that's put out like that is a threat towards students, a threat towards schools or businesses or any mass gathering, it's going to be taken very seriously and dealt with appropriately.
So parents, if you're out there listening or watching, please have a serious talk with your students. And how would you suggest that the parents talk to their students about the consequences of doing things like this?
Well, I think just being open and honest about it. You know, if you send these type of things out on social media and talk about these things and make these kind of statements, law enforcement's going to come knocking on your door if they find out about it, and they're going to do searches of your home and potentially arrest warrants. You know, and so people need to understand that these are very serious allegations and very serious things that people do. You know, that we have to be taken very seriously. So many times you see on the media where you've had mass casualty shootings and different things where there were all kind of warning signs and nobody did anything or was not brought to the public attention up beforehand, but there were warning signs to the school or the community or through social media or different things that people either didn't pay attention to or just outright ignored. And so we're living in a day and time we can no longer just ignore things and not pay attention to it and say, oh, that's Tim, he's a pretty good kid, he wouldn't do anything like that, you know, and just kind of leave it alone. We have to follow through with it, and we have to make sure that things are dealt with appropriately and consistently.
And this involved a lot of people too. The Cherokee and Clay County Sheriff's Office, school administration, also involved the Highway Patrol, the ATF, the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation, ADAs from the District Attorney's Office. So it involved a lot of agencies, and this went into the overnight hours. The suspect was taken into custody at 12:30 a.m.
Right.
So it was a big operation just to get all this under control.
Well, you know, we have to take a lot of things into consideration on this. One reason why you bring so many people involved in this is not only are you talking about, threats that's issued toward other families and other students and government entities, schools and things of that nature. Not only have to take that component into consideration, but you also have to take into consideration you're dealing with a juvenile. And so dealing with that appropriately and dealing with their families and making sure that we're not doing things inconsistent or violation of people's rights on that end of it, or on either end. And so that's why you bring people such as the District Attorney, State Bureau of Investigations, other people involved in this, so we can do a collaborative effort and make sure that we're making the right decisions and doing the right thing, not overreacting to things, but not underreacting to things either. Just making sure that we deal with things appropriately as they come up.
All right. Well, we appreciate everyone and every agency involved in this, and we're so glad that any threat was taken seriously in this situation, and things were prevented before anything serious happened. Right. So thanks to everyone who stopped a bad situation. And parents, again, please do talk to your students about just being sensible and not making these threats to
I think
students.
A lot of times the young folks don't necessarily, especially if they're talking to someone they know, they may say things just trying for a shock value, just trying to stir their friends up or to get some attention, things of that nature. And I think a lot of times they're not really sure or understand the seriousness of it or the consequences of that. So I know that our resource officers in Cherokee County, and I'm sure Clay County is the same way, and other counties, try to do trainings with the kids and try to do different things with them to let them understand and know, that this will not be tolerated and that it is a serious thing to do that. So hopefully we won't have any more incidents like this in the near future anyway.
All right. Well, last week I was at a meeting, the Drug-Free Coalition in Cherokee County, and the Andrews Police Chief had mentioned about drugs coming in from Lumberton with, an unnamed person called Black Horse. Right. And the newspaper had done a story about that. So I know there had been some talk on social media about that. So can you kind of explain the situation there?
Well, in a nutshell, let me say this first. I've not been able to find any corroborating information that says that's true. I've talked with everybody from the DEA to the ATF, Haywood County, Jackson County, Macon County, Swain County, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, Cherokee Indian Police, a different task force in Western North Carolina, people that are drug agents that are in the know of drug traffic flows and what's happening. And no one I've talked to related any information even close to that as being true. I don't know what happened there. I don't know if information got misconstrued or if it got stories got combined or things of that nature. But let me explain a little bit about this on that story and what I found out about it. One thing that we need to know right off the bat is the term black horse is there may be somebody somewhere that goes by that name, but the term black horse itself is a term for black tar heroin. It's not a person, it's a thing. And so one of the slang terms for heroin is horse, and you hear that a lot throughout the South and especially the Eastern Seaboard and Northeast. You hear it a lot in the Northeast. So just heroin in general is called horse. And so when you hear the term black horse, they're talking about black tar heroin is what black horse means, black tar heroin. And I can tell you from working drugs in Cherokee County for near 20 years now, I started as an investigator in 2000, I think it was 2000, somewhere along in 2000, with Cherokee County, investigated drugs ever since then. I can tell you the number of times on one hand that we've encountered black tar heroin in Cherokee County. The heroin that we see here in Cherokee County and what we get and what we confiscate and what people are overdosing on and all that is either white heroin or brown heroin. And that comes up from the pipeline out of Atlanta, which most of our drugs do come out of North Georgia. One thing about this too, and about drugs coming in from other places, I'm sure that people passing through the area may have drugs on them that bring them from wherever they come from, whether it could be from Florida or from the East Coast or New York or Chicago or wherever they're coming here from. So in that essence, I guess you could say that there has been drugs coming to the area from Lumberton or from the East Coast or wherever. But you think about this story alleged that there was mafia ties to this. You think about mafia in the East Coast in Lumberton or in Fayetteville area. They've got Charlotte, Gastonia, Hickory, Greensboro, Asheville, and a multitude of other cities in between us and Fayetteville. So what would be the reason that a mafia relation or a tie from a drug trafficker in Fayetteville would come all the way to Cherokee County to bring drugs 5.5 hours away to Cherokee County? If black tar heroin was coming from that distance, we would see it everywhere. They'd be bringing massive loads of it if that was the situation. We're just not seeing that. We're just not seeing any supporting evidence to those statements that were true. I talked to one of the DEA guys last night. I was at home and anticipated this question would come up today, and called him and I said, listen, I just want to know, you work the whole Western North Carolina, you know the ends of everything going on out here. Is there something I'm missing? Is there something we're not aware of? And he just started laughing. He said, no, absolutely not. He said, you're right on the money. He said, you got a direct pipeline to Atlanta, and that's where your drugs are coming from. We have zero information of any drugs coming from the East Coast. So my thing is, if the chief up there or anybody else has information to the contrary, it's certainly not been shared with us. It's not been shared with the sheriff's office. It's not been shared with the narcotics unit. It's not been shared with the DEA or anybody else that I can find out that information has been shared with. So I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying we have no validation to it. And so that's really about all I can add to that story there.
I was there at the meeting. He did not say specifically Cherokee County. He said the mountains.
Right.
So that's a pretty big area.
Right.
So it could be Asheville.
Could be Asheville.
Exactly.
Right? It could be a pipeline to Asheville. I don't know. But I started getting all these calls about mafia in Cherokee County and Fayetteville connection. Why are we not talking about that? And why are we not talking about drugs from other places other than Atlanta? And the simple answer to that is we didn't have no information of drugs coming anywhere other than from the North Georgia, Atlanta area. Every once in a while, we do get information of people going to Asheville, for example, and picking up pills, maybe getting some cocaine or something like that and bringing it back to our area. But those are very few and far between. And everybody we arrest, everybody we interview, informants we interview, I can tell you for the last 10 years or so that I know of, almost every single person we've talked to, the drugs are coming out of Atlanta. They're coming from North Georgia and Gainesville and Marietta, Atlanta area, and Rome, Georgia, and those kind of places, coming up out of that North Georgia connection. So,
how are they usually transported here? Personal vehicles?
Personal vehicles, way the majority of it is done. One I talked to last week that was going down and was talking about loads that have been picked up and brought back. I asked, how are they bringing it back? Have they got hidden compartments? Are they transporting it in trailers, hiding it in things, whatever? And they're like, no, they store it in the front seat and come up the road with it in the front seat. And that's typically what we're hearing now. The majority of them is they're just riding front with them, and may have some type of hidden compartment or console, but it's very easy to get to. It's nothing elaborate to get to those drugs. However, over the years, we have found very elaborate compartments and have found ways that people hide things and switches to flip open compartments open and hiding under places you'd never expect, and gas tanks and spare tires and all kind of stuff. So there are some elaborate ways people do that. But what I'm saying is the majority of the ways is just people driving down to a hotel somewhere and their connection in Atlanta and buying it and throwing it in the front seat in a rolled up bag and heading up the road with it is the way most of it is happening. Most of it also, from what we find out, is even though you do have late night deliveries and after hours deliveries, most people are coming straight up the middle of the day with the flow of traffic, and so I know a lot of people get upset with, when they see the sheriff's office out doing traffic, stopping cars and, stop people for speeding and, running stop signs and weaving and those kind of things. And people say, well, that's Highway Patrol's job. Y'all need to be doing other stuff. But what they don't understand is the majority of the traffic that we do like that, we're actually looking for drugs is what we're doing. We're looking for people hauling drugs and carrying drugs. And most of it, like I say, and from what we're hearing from informants, is things that's just been thrown in the front seat coming up the road right in the middle of the day. And so we're just trying to stay vigilant and trying to figure out, through informants and different people when these loads are coming and how to take them off and those kind of things. And sometimes deliveries are made and we may follow people to see what the connections are and see who's picking up and who's taking to what houses and things of that nature, and kind of seeing how that's dispersed and spread out. So there's other undercover efforts that's involved with that. It's not just waiting on Highway 60 and stopping them when they cross the line. There's other investigative means that has to be done with that. But it's very difficult sometimes to follow all the different tunnels and all the different trails and stuff where drugs go. And most of these informants will tell you, if all these informants will tell you, is they very rarely do the same thing twice. They may go one day on Wednesday and with a certain vehicle, and the next week it may be on a Friday night at midnight with a different vehicle, so every time you kind of catch up and figure out what they're doing something different, so it's a never ending cat and mouse game to try to keep in contact with what's going on out here and catching up. But I will tell you again, just to reiterate, I can tell you we have zero information of anything coming from the East Coast this way, unless it's through, Asheville, or it's through going from the East Coast to Georgia and then maybe backing up that way somehow. But as far as just a direct pipeline between us and Fayetteville, we have no information of that.
Hearing the chief talk from Andrews, I got to say I'm pretty encouraged to see the building of that department.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like he has a good team of officers, and he's I think he said he had one more. So it looks like Andrews Police Department is going to be a very respectable department, and I'm encouraged to see the future of that department.
So. I really do.
I know that's going to take a lot of pressure off the sheriff's office, knowing that
a tremendous amount. Tremendous amount. And I talked to the chief. I've talked to him several times, and just last week I was talking with him about a different issue and some things that was coming up, and we so far we've had a good relationship where we can talk to each other and help each other out with needs or whatever may be going on out there. So I'm also encouraged with what Andrews is doing, and maybe here before too long they will be up to full staff and get all their certifications in and have officers patrolling, so we can back out of it even more than what we already have and spend more of our efforts out, in the county doing things that we need to do out in the county.
Yeah, I think right now they've had to wait on a few certifications, which is pretty much always the case whenever you're building.
Right.
But meeting with some of the officers, they're ready to serve the public, and I know the public is ready to be served with a full-time police department in Andrews. Yeah. So it looks like the building process is going great, and they're out there working. So
right.
All right. So the school buses are back on the road.
Oh, they are. Yes.
Let's make sure that those kids are safe, and also the motorists are safe as well.
When I worked at the school as a resource officer, I also drove a school bus, and people cannot even imagine how stressful it is for a school bus driver to drive a school bus with lots of times 30 or more kids on the bus, with their lives in your hands on these curvy mountain roads and traffic coming around curves and unloading kids off your bus and kids getting on your bus. How stressful that is to try to keep everybody safe during your route and make sure you don't have accidents. I have heard, that there has been some surrounding counties and different things have already had some accidents this school year. I don't think Cherokee County's had any, knock on wood, hope we don't have any. But the things that we need to realize is that when you're dealing with school buses for parents and children, one of the main things is don't be in a hurry. Get to your bus stop early. Get there early. Stay at least, 3 to 5 feet away from your stop to where the bus has plenty of room to stop. It can see you, things of that nature, Make sure that that when the bus stops, that you make eye contact with the driver and the drivers make eye contact with the kids. So they can actually see who's there, who's boarding the bus, who's getting off, things of that nature. Also, one of the big things, I saw this on TV just this morning, when a kid gets off the bus, parents be sure and remind your kids, never go behind the bus. Don't go around from behind it. Always go around the front of the bus if you have to cross the street. And even though the bus is stopped with the stop arm out and with the stop sign out, if you're crossing in front of that bus, teach your children to please be sure and stop and look, even though traffic is stopped, even though the school bus has a stop sign out, because not all the time cars stop. Sometimes they may be other things going on in that person's life. They didn't see the stop sign out, or they didn't realize what they were doing, and they passed that stop school bus. So it's very important that the children are taught also as they're exiting buses what to do in that event, and always stay far enough away from the bus when you're getting on and getting off the bus that the driver can see you clearly and you can see the driver. So we just want to make sure that we don't have any accidents or anything this year. I can tell you the one time in my life, of all the things I've done in law enforcement, one thing in my life that probably bothered me the most, that I honestly thought I was going to pass out. I had a bus stop where there was 2 children at the bus stop, and some days there were just one. One child rode my bus, another child rode a different bus going to a different school. And so some days I had one child, some days there was 2 standing there. And so I had to pay particular attention at this particular stop because I never knew if there's going to be one or multiple children there. This particular morning, there was one child. I did all my safety checks, checked my mirrors, put my sign out, watched the child as it got on the bus, stared in my rearview mirror till he was seated, had seated in the back of the bus, shut my doors, checked all my mirrors, didn't see anything, and I started to leave, and I felt the bump where I ran over something. And my heart sank. I honestly thought I was going to pass out because all I could think about was sometimes there's 2 kids at that stop, and what if I didn't see that other kid? And what if he come out the road in front of me? And it was bad enough. Luckily, it was not a child, but it was an animal. It was that child's pet that had gotten under the bus while he was being seated, and I was looking at the mirror. It got under the bus, and I didn't see it. And then when I left, I accidentally ran over that child's pet, and that was devastating enough to for a child to lose a pet and to run over an animal and things of that nature. But for that few seconds that I thought I ran over a child, it was just, honestly, it was devastating. It was heartbreaking to me.
There are a lot of blind spots.
There is.
You can't see everywhere on that as a driver.
Right. And when you do your bus training and those type of things, you realize that you have to be about 8 to 10 feet in front of that bus before you can see what's there. Anything closer than that, the hood is on most buses are so tall you can't see what's in front of that. So that's why they have all these different concave mirrors and convex mirrors and stuff on these buses, that you can kind of look at your bumpers and all these kind of things and do your mirror checks and all that before you leave. But the purpose of that story was that even the best you can do, sometimes things happen and sometimes tragedy strikes. So we want to do everything we can to make sure that we don't have an accident this year. And so I'll just encourage, if any parents are listening to the program today or this week, maybe later on through Facebook or whatever, just to be sure you spend that time, if your child rides a bus, to talk to your child, even if it's an adult child, even if it's a teenage child. Be sure and talk to your children about school bus safety and being appropriate with the bus, and not, doing things to keep from being an accident and things of that nature. So I just want to put that out there before we go, for people to be safe, because we are starting a new school year and we want to make sure we continue through the entire year without having any kind of accidents.
All right. Sheriff, anything else before we end our show?
No, I think that'll be all. Just wish everybody a happy Friday, and Monday is Labor Day. A lot of people will be out finishing up their last summer hoorahs on the lake and camping and all those kind of things. So just be safe out there for the weekend.
All right, folks, you're tuned to WKRK 105.5 FM, 1320 AM, cable TV channel 25, and online at WKRK.love.